Centre. My name is Deacon Joe Curtis. I'm the coordinator of Caritas Leeds, but also being the co-chair together with Tom of our criminal justice inquiry. I want to especially offer a warm welcome to Alison Lowe, who is in front here. I'm sure many people know Alison. She's the West Yorkshire Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime. I would also wish to extend the apologies of Bishop Marcus, who is not able to be with us this afternoon due to other commitments. However, he did send a message which I would like to read you now. He says, please pass on my best wishes and assurances of my prayers to those taking part in today's event to mark the end of Prisoners' Week 2021. I hope that your prayers, presentations and conversations will help the important work you have already begun to continue and assist those who have been wronged to find healing and peace, and those who have committed offences to receive and accept forgiveness. Crime has far-reaching consequences for victims and for offenders and their families. In helping to create opportunities for encounter and practical ways in which victims and offenders can emerge from their sufferings, you are helping to bring Christ's healing love into our society. I happily extend my blessing to all gathered together for justice and mercy, your next steps, and to all those who seek to serve. With assurance of my prayers and ever blessing, yours in Christ, Marcus, Bishop of Leeds. I would now like to offer you a brief background which led us to today's event. Firstly, Caritas Leeds was launched in 2017 as an umbrella organisation for groups involved in social action across the Diocese of Leeds. Our aims include providing a strong and coherent voice on important social issues for the diocese, identify and respond to areas of need within the diocese, and encourage, promote and facilitate social action. Now, nearly 3 years ago, at a gathering of lay faithful and clergy, 2 priorities were voted in for Caritas Leeds. One was youth leadership, and the other was the needs of prisoners and ex-offenders. Now, in order to progress with the latter priority, we recruited a number of people across the diocese with specific skills and experiences of the criminal justice system to form a commission to lead this priority. Now, this group, amongst others, included, and some of the commissioners are here, a former Member of Parliament, and there's John Battle there, a barrister, a prison chaplain, a chief executive of a charity working with ex-offenders, a retired magistrate, and a retired deputy chief constable. Our aims of this inquiry were 4. First aim was to increase knowledge and understanding among Catholics of the United Kingdom's criminal justice system and the experiences of people in our diocese who encounter it. This was necessary for the members of the Commission, but also informed the outputs which came out from this inquiry, which Tom will elaborate on. The second aim was to explore and reflect on approaches to restorative justice. The third, to encourage Catholics to take more action to support people encountering the criminal justice system and address the injustices which they may face. And the last aim was to make practical recommendations for action. So therefore then, our focus was on prisoners, ex-offenders, families, and victims of crime. Therefore, I would suggest we adopted a holistic and an inclusive approach. Now, after agreeing a strategy and a work plan, we progressed with an extensive program of meetings and visits, including, amongst others, prisons, law courts, members of the police force in both West and North Yorkshire, prisoners and ex-offenders, and numerous third sector agencies, which work in the field. Now, 12 months ago, virtually to the day, we held a virtual event when we launched our detailed report under the title Justice and Mercy. Here it is. We also introduced various online resources and a set of challenging recommendations. Today, we are offering a little booklet, which I'm going to distribute, which includes the foreword from this report, the executive summary, and the recommendations for action. So, our report has 4 recommendations. The first one is to promote action that raise awareness and inspire more Catholics to work for positive changes in the criminal justice system. The second is encourage participation of parishes in practical local action. The third, foster training and capacity building activities to equip clergy and religious and lay people with the skills and confidence to act as champions for justice and mercy and ensure that the Catholic Church is an effective partner for organizations working within the criminal justice system. And the last part of this afternoon will be an example of how we actually have achieved that. And the last recommendation was to support reforms which build a criminal justice system that delivers both justice and mercy. So you may be wondering then, why have we invited you to come here this afternoon? In drawing our set of recommendations for actions, we never intended for the Commission to work through all of them on our own, but shared across the diocese. Hence, in a short while, I will invite Tom, the other co-chair of our Diocesan Commission, to share with you the progress made in our action plan to start to address the set recommendations in our report, which has the full support of Bishop Marcus. So if I now hand you to Tom, who will give you the details of what has been achieved.
Afternoon, everyone. So the purpose of this report was to kind of stimulate and encourage action amongst Catholics that supports justice and mercy in the system. So I'm going to talk through where we're up to on these recommendations, and the hope is that you will help us continue these and spread them out more widely across our region. So our first recommendation was about raising awareness and inspiring the Catholic community to take action. And we've done this in lots of ways over the last year. The original forum, that group of commissioners who helped organise the listening events, continued to meet and continue to help organise and promote this issue across the Catholic community. We had an intention to ensure that Prisoners Week and Prison Sunday was kind of recognised in our diocese more widely. So last year we had a pastoral letter from our bishop, which means an official letter that basically every single parish priest is supposed to read out on the same Sunday to promote a particular message, and that was themed on criminal justice issues last year. And this year we're obviously having this event and trying to reach out to more organisations. We've also done some work to share learning and raise awareness amongst the Catholic community. We ran a series of workshops online to help people understand different aspects of this issue, and we had lots of support from different people, some of which are here today. So we had a brilliant event on life in prison that was led by our local prison chaplain, Chris, who is here. We had an event that was led by the West Yorkshire Community Chaplaincy Project, YSIP, which was on life after prison. We also had a brilliant event looking at restorative justice with help from Restorative Solutions. So these are different workshops that kind of help Catholics get an understanding of these issues really gently, so that they're in a position to help out locally, and hopefully we'll be able to have more workshops on different themes related to the criminal justice system. We've done some work to try and encourage prison chaplains to get together and coordinate a bit more across our region. That's been quite difficult because obviously with COVID and the demands of that job, it's quite difficult to get all prison chaplains in the same place at the same time. But we've had some letters and communication from our Vicar General, and we've had a bit of support from YSIP. So our hope is that over the next few years, we can help support and encourage more ways that prison chaplains can coordinate and work together in support of prisoners and in concert with all the organisations represented here. So our second recommendation was about basically encouraging local actions in parishes and deaneries. So the great thing about the Catholic Church is you've got these small local units everywhere across the Union of people who gather regularly and potentially can do stuff together. So we want to kind of encourage that potential power to be used for this issue. So we set out with these recommendations and these ambitions, and then obviously the pandemic hit, which meant that people couldn't get into churches and meet regularly. So some of the things that we had envisaged we've not been able to do through churches being closed, but they are obviously opening now, and some of those local activities are starting to gear up again. What we've done in the meantime is we've contacted deans, who are basically the people with some oversight and responsibility for different local areas within our region. We promoted the work of organisations like Tempus Novo, and later on I'll show you the website that we've got, but on that website there's kind of a big directory of different organisations that anybody can get in contact with, and you can kind of put your postcode in and find out where's the nearest organisation you can connect with as well. And I'll speak later on about Ban the Box, which is a campaign where we're hoping that Catholics can show a bit of leadership in their own workplaces. Okay, so the next recommendation was about increasing our own skills and confidence and sort of training, capacity building Catholics so that we're in a good position to be useful partners to organisations that work in the criminal justice system. Later on, Bev is going to speak about a new partnership that we are starting with West Yorkshire Police, and that's going to involve quite a high level of training in a range of different issues, from adverse childhood experiences to organised crime and exploitation. And that will be a really important way that we are increasing the skills and equipping Catholics to understand some of the underlying issues behind crime in our region. We've also, I mentioned the Restorative Justice workshop. We've done some work to promote restorative justice amongst lay Catholics, and the next stage where we want to take this is to ensure that all clergy have an understanding of restorative justice, can signpost people and engage with the relevant providers of restorative justice and kind of tell a positive story about it in their community so that people are much more receptive to it if it's offered to them. And we'd like this to be included as a form of sort of CPD's kind of career professional development that clergy have. And the final thing is supporting reforms in the criminal justice system. So we recognise that not everything about the system that we've studied is decided here. There are lots of things which the Ministry of Justice, which the Home Office and other government agencies are responsible for. But we do think that it's important that Catholics raise their voice and work with others to campaign to change things. And when we went round visiting people and hearing testimonies, there were so many different things where there needs to be a change in government policy, or there needs to be extra funding provided to something, and we think we should be increasing our voice and either putting pressure on decision makers or supporting those who are on our side to have a louder voice. So we've started that by building relationships with local leaders here. We met with the previous Police and Crime Commissioner, Mark Burns-Williamson. We presented a briefing on this issue at the Citizens UK Assembly with Tracy Brabin ahead of the election, and most recently we've met with our Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, Alison Lowe. And so we hope that through building on those relationships we'll be able to strengthen our campaigns and calls for changes to the wider system. And the Ban the Box campaign, we produced our own simple guide for Catholic business leaders and employees to help them start the conversation with their employer about how they can change their recruitment practices so that they don't discriminate against people with a criminal record. And we think that that kind of action locally can stimulate lots and lots of other positive conversations. And our hope is that over the next couple of years we can dramatically increase the number of West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire employers who have made this commitment to change their recruitment practices and are not excluding people with criminal records. So I hope in that short briefing you've got a sense of the work that we've started. It's not over by any means, and there's lots more that we need to do. But we really look forward to working with you and joining with you as we try and introduce more justice and mercy into the criminal justice system.
Thank you, Tom. Now we have some messages we have received. The first one is a podcast which we'd like to share with you. This was sent by the Right Reverend Richard Moth, who is the Bishop of Arundel and Brighton, but also the liaison bishop for prisons on behalf of the Catholic bishops Conference for England and Wales. So you can hear the message from Bishop Richard.
As the Liaison Bishop for Prisons, may I offer my good wishes for this event. It is especially timely given the present circumstances of the gradual move away from the restrictions and lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic. The impact of the last 18 months on those living in prison and on their families has been very great indeed. Many prisoners have been confined to their cells for extended periods of time, and while this has been a necessary measure to combat the risks of COVID-19, it has been at a cost to both prisoners and to those who work with them. It has been more difficult for prisoners to access courses, exercise, association time, and the opportunities for worship. Many in society have felt isolated as a result of the pandemic, but this sense of isolation for families unable to visit their loved ones has been especially difficult and damaging. The presence of volunteers from our parish communities amongst those in prison and assisting their families has been an important support for them for some years now. This support has been missed during these last 18 months, but it is now needed more than ever before. May I express my thanks to all who have been involved in preparing for this event, and congratulate the Diocese of Leeds for this initiative. I am sure this gathering will bear much fruit for those in prison, their families, and for the parish communities from which so much support is needed.
We also have a message from Yvette Cooper, who, as you know, is a Member of Parliament in one of our constituencies in our diocese, but also being the chair of the House of Commons Home Affairs Committee. There are huge difficulties for people engaging with the criminal justice system. Victims and their families are often in huge need of support and struggle to get justice. Turning around the lives of ex-offenders, tackling addiction and preventing people reoffending are all hard but vital. As chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, I know how difficult many people find the criminal justice system, and that is why it is so welcome that Caritas Leeds are looking at how churches and community organisations can work with people across West Yorkshire on these difficult issues. I really enjoyed reading your report. In my introduction, I said that Alison Lowe, Deputy Mayor for West Yorkshire Combined Authority, is with us this afternoon. So I would now to invite Alison to address us, please.
Thank you so much for inviting me today. I said yes for two reasons. One, because obviously I love John and Tom, and I wanted to support this. And I am a Catholic, even though I've never really been brought into the Catholic faith because of the tragedy when my sister was killed and my mum lost her faith temporarily. It's come back now. But also because I've come back to my beloved Armley, where I was a counsellor for 29 years, and I helped, along with the other Armley counsellors at the time, to rejuvenate and revitalise this community centre, which is doing so much good in the community that is so desperately in need of the great work that New Wortley Community Centre does. So I'd like to, first of all, give the apologies of the Mayor for not being here today. Obviously, I'm her delegated representative for all things policing and criminal justice. She's having a weekend with her family who live in London, and she doesn't get to see them very often. So I begged her to go, and I said that I would stand in here in her stead and hopefully do a good enough job that you will forgive her for not being here. I was really pleased to receive the invitation, but also to meet with Joseph and Tom and John, I think it was last week before, yes, and to talk about the report. We've been trying to meet for a long time, and it was really brilliant to understand this really important work that has been undertaken, because the Mayor's plan, police and crime plan, which is currently in development, has three underpinning themes: women and girls, you'll all have heard that one, inclusion, diversity and equality is another one of the underpinning themes. And the third is early intervention and prevention. So the early intervention and prevention one in particular really chimes so beautifully with the theme of the report and the aspiration and ambition of that report. When we met, we talked about how the Mayor's Office will continue to fund restorative justice, so we've just extended the contract. We believe that restorative justice is an integral part of the justice system that we want to see here across West Yorkshire, because hate is a terrible thing, as we saw yesterday. We're coming to the end of Hate Crime Awareness Week, and hate never did anyone any good. That's a paraphrase of Maya Angelou. But we know that love heals, brings communities together. And through the process of bringing people together through the restorative justice process, we know that two things happen. Families who have been victims can come to terms with what's happened and move on. And people who have been perpetrators can really understand the impact of the harm that they have caused, and they can make some choices about whether they go down the path of redemption and change or whether they stay on the path of harm. And I know that most people choose the former, and that's why it's just so important, because crime is a scourge in our communities, and we want to reduce crime, eliminate it if possible, but definitely work with people who are both perpetrators and we know victims. Most of the research that has been undertaken absolutely demonstrates that the vast majority of people who cause harm have been harmed, and it is through the process of understanding, opening your heart, that you can learn to love again and be a loving part of the communities that you live in and, in my case, serve. So I want to congratulate you for the work that you've done. I want to thank you for putting so much time, energy and effort into making this report come to life. I have promised that I will do all that I can to bring the values of this document to life and ensure that at West Yorkshire Combined Authority, which is the home of the Mayor, our Mayor, that we will do all that we can to ensure that we employ ex-offenders. Some of you might know that at Touchstone we employed lots and lots of ex-offenders, and we were so delighted to be able to do that, because we learn as well as give the gift of employment and a second chance. And also I'm going to be working very hard with the Mayor's Office to ensure that restorative justice is not just part of the criminal justice process, but is also part of the everyday culture that we develop and we live by throughout the 3 years that we are in office. Thank you very much.
One of our major initiatives which have emerged from our inquiry is what I believe to be this strong partnership we have developed with West Yorkshire Police. Together we have developed a framework which we are launching this afternoon, and I'm therefore very pleased to invite Beverley Adams, whom we've met numerous times now, not so much in person, most of it has been via Zoom, the world of Zoom. Anyway, Beverley is the Principal Community Engagement Officer to share with us the details of the FaithWorks Framework.
Good afternoon, lovely to see you all here today. Now, God works in mysterious ways, as they say. For some time I've been mulling around in my head, how can we engage with different faith networks across the board, so it could be Catholicism, Hinduism, Sikhism, etc., because people of faith potentially play such an important role in healing and helping a community, and it's jointly that we have to do this. Why God works in mysterious ways is this lovely report landed in my email box and I'd never heard of it, God forgive me, never heard of it.
It was my fault.
So I read the report and I was absolutely inspired by the amount of work that had gone into this report by the amount of workshops that had already taken place and just by the recommendations. So I went through the recommendations very, very closely and actually thought, okay, what part can the police play in this in terms of supporting the faith community? So we looked at recommendation 3, linked in with the Caritas board members, who I may say have been absolutely superb in helping drive this framework forward and co-developing it. This has been a co-production piece of work. And we looked at, okay, recommendation 3 in terms of building good relationships between lay Catholics, the ministry, etc. How can we almost educate people around what's going on in terms of vulnerability and criminality, and what part do we all play in that? Now, it can be a scary place to try and take action, and one of the key things, particularly from the police's perspective, is to support our communities on that journey. So we're not leaving people to do this in isolation. So within the framework that's been developed, we looked at creating 4 very simple workshops that you can attend in person or you can attend online. So it's a hybrid type of effect. And the key thing here was around vulnerability. That's one of our key policing purposes. As I've said, everybody has a part to play across all the different faith networks, etc. So the workshops that we've jointly come up with, first of all, is looking at childhood, and particularly around adverse childhood experiences. Because from a very, very young age, stress and adverse childhood experiences, it affects a young person beyond belief. Sometimes they don't have the words to share how it's affecting them. It can pan out in behaviour. It can pan out in them withdrawing or developing a really low self-esteem. And from childhood, the knock-on effect, if it isn't addressed and the young person supported, it leaves them vulnerable. It leaves them vulnerable to exploitation. It leaves them vulnerable to going down the wrong path. And it's all too easy to look at a young person who may be behaving in a certain way, in a negative way. It's too easy to think, they're too much of a challenge, etc. And I think we've all got the opportunity to really look beyond that and to look at the young person and to think, okay, what's going on? How can we support that young person? And an example would be even within a school setting. So the key thing is children. I can't tell you how important it is for children to be present and stay in school and learn an education. If they're persistently absent from school, 2 things: they're not getting the education which will reduce their life opportunities in terms of careers, but also potentially somebody's exploiting them because they're not just sat at home. So if some young people, either in the school setting or out of the school setting, are struggling, how can we support them? I'm not saying we have to do this in isolation and we have to come up with all the solutions ourselves. In this workshops that we'll be holding, we actually look at, okay, how can we play our part? And we look at a co-production of supporting each other to try and support others. The second workshop will be looking at exploitation. Now, in this case, it will be around organised exploitation of vulnerable people. And the reason I say organised and vulnerable people, exploitation of vulnerable people, is because within certain levels of criminality, it is exactly that. There are organised crime groups which will set out to exploit young people, actually vulnerable people. And when I say vulnerable people, even in terms of adults, it could be across the board. So it could be age-related. Perhaps somebody's got a learning disability. It could be somebody may have an addiction, etc. So anybody that's got a vulnerability, potentially they're primed to be exploited. And I think, so all of this is about coming together in these workshops and actually trying to look for solutions to help others. The third workshop is about violence and actually understanding the different strands of violence. So violence that takes place, it could be in the home, it could be on the street, it could be how potentially violence is used to intimidate, threaten, coerce people into criminality. And actually hear about what West Yorkshire Police and West Yorkshire Combined Authority, the Violence Reduction Unit, etc. are doing to try and combat that. And then the fourth workshop is actually about call to action. So that's a call to action to see potentially how we can work together as lay Catholics, or again it could be across the board in terms of faith organisations. Lay Catholics, it could be the clergy, it could be catechists, it could be youth workers. Everybody's got a part to play. And this is the great thing about our faith, because it actually links in completely to what it says in the report, right at the beginning of the report, which when I did read the report, that was one of the first things that actually stood out for me. And I shall read it to you. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister has nothing to wear and has no food for the day, and not one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and eat well, but you do not give them the necessities of the body, what good is it? So also faith of itself, if it does not have works, is dead. So faith is absolutely integral, it really is, but we have to do good works. We have to do good works, and that's across all faiths. So the workshops, they're printed on the leaflets, so please take the leaflets away. They start on the 25th of November and run until March 2022. We're piloting this in the Kirklees Deanery, so we've linked in with 2 schools within Kirklees, St John Fisher and All Saints. So we're alternating them in terms of the venue. This is a pilot, and so we want to see how it goes, because the key thing here, we are kind of learning together, and we want to improve as we go along. And again, it's all about building on the super work of the report. So this is, for me, this is just the start of the relationship, and it will continue to grow year upon year. And I'm a little bit nervous about it, because I do want a good uptake and to get people attending and actually really feeling that they've got a part to play. So watch this space, there'll be further publicity, and I'll be keeping in touch with you all. Thank you.
The only thing to add to what Bev said, that there will be some input about Catholic social teaching in each of these workshops. And the idea is then when this workshop this framework is then set to another Christian denomination, for example, there'll be their reading. If it is working with the Muslim community, it'll be referring to what the Quran says and things like that. So this is the big vision. But can I thank you for engaging with us so enthusiastically? Earlier I mentioned that we have invited a number of agencies this afternoon, and they've all got their goods here. Just to acknowledge your presence, we have presence from West Yorkshire Police, from PACT, from Restorative Solutions, Ingeus, St George's Crypt, Wortley Community Centre, Victim Support, and St Vincent de Paul Society. We also have literature about the West Yorkshire Community Chaplaincy, St John's Bail Hostel, and SPACE, which is Stop and Prevent Adolescent Criminal Exploitation. But before I close the formal part this afternoon, I'd like to thank you all for coming. All those who had a speaking part. Alison, for your time with us this afternoon.
I'm Christine Lane, and I'm Head of Health and Wellbeing at St George's Crypt in Leeds. One of the programmes we offer at St George's Crypt is Growing Rooms, which is an addiction recovery programme revolving around the 12 steps. It's a one-year programme, and it takes our clients from chaos to citizenship and everything in between. A large percentage of the clients that come to us directly from Her Majesty's Prison, so we have a lot of experience of the criminal justice system and how we can help. And this is Gordon, who is our therapeutic support worker at Growing Rooms. And maybe Gordon can just give us a brief insight into what Growing Rooms does.
The real innovative about Growing Rooms is, all the staff that work there have all got their own lived experience. All the staff are in recovery, so that helps breaks down barriers with the client group that we get. And it's an abstinence-based programme, and people come and engage, and as Christine says, they can leave a functioning member of society, but there's 5 individual houses that people live in, as well as the building where we support from on a day-to-day basis. And lads also volunteer at St George's Crypt or in one of the charity shops, giving back to society, helping out, which is teaching them and learning them about selflessness, also about giving back to community, as well as 3 days a week they'll come into us and we'll do sessions, group work, focused on abstinence, focused on the 12-step model, and engage in recovery, and they all get to live together and support each other, and it's a fantastic programme.
And last year we have 22 men on the programme. It is male only, but last year we had 10 successful graduates, as we call them, that completed the programme. Out of that 10, 7 went into employment, which we're really proud of. And we have people at different levels of recovery, sort of lots of peer mentoring and supporting. And also, just to say that today, made some great contacts about how agencies dovetail into supporting, providing support for people coming through the criminal justice system. It's been a really good experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
So PACT is a national charity working with children and families across England and Wales. We run family visitor centres in prisons. We have family engagement workers in custody. We run group work programmes and interventions in custody, as well as support out in the community. We've got support in the courts where we signpost families through the sentencing programme. We also have family workers in the community that are liaising with social services, schools, and other services to bridge that gap between the offender and the family. The aim for PACT is to strengthen those families while someone's in custody, and we do that by liaising with the families in the community and the children, as well as other external services. We also have our Families Helpline, which is a national helpline which is available to anyone to ring. That could be a professional, it could be an offender, either in the community or in prison, or it could be a family member themselves, and that helpline is there to give support, advice and information about either custody or issues that might be happening in custody, or it could be just signposting about I don't understand what probation is or what the probation officers can do for my family member, so the people on the helpline can help that person with their inquiry.
Okay, my name is Sarah Rycroft. I'm the Regional Manager for Ingeus, and we are delivering personal wellbeing as part of the Commissioned Rehabilitative Services. The wonderful thing about that contract is it is simply focused and tailored to deal with offenders' wellbeing needs and requirements. A lot of that is delivered in community, so we have a number of community sites across West Yorkshire, and the social inclusion element is delivered pre-release in custody. So we have teams of advisors and mentors who will support through interventions, one-to-ones, wraparound hand-holding care, to support an individual integrate back into the community and carry on with their lives and rebuild.
Hi, we're from Victim Support. The role we do is to support victims of crime. And that can be any crime from street robberies all the way through to homicide. And we provide one-to-one support for victims affected by crimes to help them recover beyond what they've been affected by.
And I'm a volunteer at Victim Support. I've been there for about 1.5 years. It's a great organisation to volunteer for. There's a big volunteer community, so it's really kind of integral to the work that Victim Support do. There's lots of different roles that you can be involved in. I'm a support worker, yeah.
I'm from the Society of St Vincent de Paul, which is an organisation, a Christian organisation in 151 countries, dealing with all sorts of forms of need. Obviously, prisoners' families are a big area of need. And this is why I've come to this meeting. The SVP help in various ways, collecting clothes for going to prisons. It helps also in helping people coming out of prison, social functions inside, but basically helping chaplains to help the prisoners. So spiritual books, rosaries, so on. So that's why we tend to be working and be effective. Thank you.
I'm Caroline Roundtree. I work for Restorative Solutions in West Yorkshire. We have the contract for restorative justice across the region. For those of you who don't know, restorative justice in a nutshell, it's the process that brings together people who have committed offences or have caused harm by crime, and it brings them into safe and facilitated contact with the people who have been affected by that, commonly referred to as the victims. There's loads of different reasons why people choose that. For some people who have been victims of crime, who have been harmed by crime, it's an opportunity for their voices to be heard in the criminal justice system. It's an opportunity for them to be able to ask questions of that offender, because sometimes it's the offender is the only person who will know the answers to those questions. For the offender, for the person who has caused that harm, it's an opportunity to take responsibility for your actions and maybe look about doing something to put things right in some sort of way. Basically, the entire nub of it comes down to it's a way of helping victims of crime cope and recover in a way that makes sense to them. It's only offered once sentencing has happened and once the police investigations have finished, so it can't be used as a way of getting a lesser sentence or getting time off. And a lot of people, particularly a lot of victims, find it a really useful way of understanding what happened and why, taking a bit of control back for themselves and being able to move past what's happened.